This conference will now be recorded.
Right. So yesterday we have seen how to create the user-defined table function. User-defined table function means which returns what a table data, and we have seen how to manipulate that return data using what arrays, and how to call that particular function from a procedure. Okay. So let me quickly create one more function. I'll open the SQL console. I'll set the schema. Right. Schema is set. Right. Now what I'll do is see here. If you take our normal ECC, we have the tables like what VBAK, VBAP, all those things. Okay, right. So for this HANA database also, there is one schema which is configured. That schema is SAP ABAP 1. Okay, so we have a schema. Okay, which is available by default. So in this schema SAP Web 1, we have the tables like all the tables. What are the general tables? We know KNM table, VBAK table, VBAP table. Like this, we have many tables. Okay, so if I search for that, I'll filter for VBAK. So you can see we have the table VBAK. If I open the definition, this is a table, VBAK table. Understood. So this is a table name. What is the configured schema? What is the schema available at SAP above one? Do you have data in this? Open data preview. Yeah, we are having the data. So we are having the data. So my requirement is I want to create a simple what table user defined function which has to return the data, from this particular table. So you can see here, if you take this WebLen, it is what data type here? N varchar of 10. Okay, ERDAT, then ERNAM. It is also what type? NVR, so and so. Okay, NETWR is what? Decimal of 15 comma 2, something like this. Okay, so what is my requirement? I want to create a table user defined function which has to return the data from this particular table. So when I'm returning the data, I want to return the sales document number. Yeah, sorry. I want to return the sales document number. Then I want to return ERN name, the person who has created, and NETWR. What is this? Decimal of 15 comma 2. WebLen is what? N varchar. ERN name is also what? N varchar. Similar to varchar data type, we have another data type in this HANA database called what? N varchar. N varchar of 10, N varchar of 12. Done. So let me create. So already we know how to create the function. So I'll say create function. Okay. I'll give the function name as something. One second. So what is our schema? Junsoft Tanana. Okay, they are the function. Only one function is available. That is option. So I'll say create function. I'll give the function name as something. Get underscore sales underscore data. I don't want to return the complete data. What I want is I want to pass this net value as input. Okay, I want to pass net value as input. I want to return all the sales orders whose net value is given then is greater than given net value. So my function should accept net value as the input parameter. Then I need to retrieve all the sales orders whose net value is greater than the given net value. So I'll say in the parentheses, I'll try to give one parameter. So I'll say in parameter, even if you don't specify it as input parameter, whatever we give in the parentheses, that is by default considered as what? Input parameter. So in, what is the parameter name I'll give? I underscore NETWR, any name. What is the data type there? Decimal of what? Something 15 comma 2. 15 comma 2. Done. Close the parameter. So what is the requirement? It has to return the sales orders based on this net value. So how do you return the table data from a function SAVRCL? By using what? Returns. Returns. Yesterday, what I did, I took one parameter. I took one parameter which is referring to what? Some table type. Some table type. So here what I'll do is, I don't have any table type. What is my requirement? I want to return the table data which contains what? Three columns. Sales order, ERN name, that is created by, and again what? Net value. Okay. So I don't have any user defined table type referring to those three columns. Yesterday what we did, we have created user defined table type with the required columns, and in the function we are specifying the what? Return parameter referring to that particular table type. Here I don't have any table type which is having those three columns. So directly I can say returns table of. Okay, returns the table of. What are the columns you want to return? Veblen. So if you see the table, Veblen is what type here? N varchar of 10. Here NM is also what? N varchar of 12. So keeping those data types in mind, here I'll say returns table of N varchar of what? 12. And then what? ER NAM, what? N varchar of. Here if you see the table, here it is what? N varchar of 12. So here if you give more length also, no problem. I am giving it as N varchar of 30. Then what? NETWR, I want to return that also. What is this? Decimal of what? 15 comma 2. Okay, so when do we go for this syntax? If you don't have any uh, what? User defined table type, if you don't have any user defined table type with the required structure, then I can directly say what? Returns table of, you specify the that fields list. Done. I'll say what? As begin. How do you return the value from a function? Directly you would say return. So far what you are doing, you are saying select so and so from what? E underscore from E underscore department, something like this. So it is checking for the existence of this table. It is checking for the existence of this table in the current schema. What is the current schema here? Gensoft HANA is the current schema. Okay, Gensoft HANA is the current schema. So in this case, the table is not available in the current schema. That VBAK table is available in which schema? SAP ABAP 1. So since it is available in different schema, I need to prefix that object name. I need to prefix the database object. What is the database object in this case? The table. Okay, returns select of in which schema it is available? SAP ABAP 1. So I'll say returns SAP ABAP 1 dot VBAK dot, what is the column name? Veblen, comma, again I'll say SAP ABAP 1 dot VBAK dot what? ER name. I want to return ER name. Then what else? SAP ABAP 1 dot VBAK dot, what is the other column you want to return? NETWR from again, what is the schema? SAP ABAP 1 dot VBAK. Okay, where SAP ABAP 1 dot VBAK dot what? NETWR is greater than or equal to the given net value. What is the given input parameter? I underscore NETWR. Also what? End. Okay, so what you are trying to understand from this function is, when you're returning the table data, if you don't have any user defined table type with the required structure, directly I can use the keyword what? Table of, you give that fields list. And then, and one more thing you have to understand is, whatever the database object I'm referring, in this case the table, this table is not part of current schema. It is part of different schema. So that is the reason I need to prefix each and every column or the table name with what? The schema name, where that particular table is available. So let me try to create this. Done. I'll say fetch. Yeah, the function is what? Create. Yeah, this is a function, and then I need to call it. So how do you call from a SQL console? Already we know. Select start from, what is the function name? Get underscore sales underscore data. Then I need to pass one input parameter. Na? So let me try to give some value. Yeah, I'm giving something 4,50,000. So it should return me all the sales orders whose net value is what? Greater than 4,50,000. So when I execute, when I say fit, yes, I got the data. Yeah, webline I got, year and name I got, and if you see the net value, yes, I'm getting the sales orders whose net value is what? Greater than so and so. Done. Working fine. Yes, working fine. Done. So is it clear to everyone? Any questions in this example? So what I mean to say in this example is, inside my procedure logic or inside my function logic, it's not compulsory that I need to refer to the tables which is part of current schema. I can refer to the tables which are part of different schema also, but I need to prefix that object name. I need to prefix the database object with the uh, target schema with the target schema. And another syntax we understood, how to return the table data. Every time it's not compulsory that I need to create the user defined table type and I need to refer to that. Not required. I can say directly like this also. Any questions?
Yeah, I see that. I have a
Yeah, sure. Tell
questions
me.
like,
Hmm.
yeah. So
Nagaraj.
yeah, I have three tables.
Mm-hmm.
So suppose I have three tables A, B, C. So A tables is refers to SAP ABAP one schema function
Okay.
like schema. So
Mm-hmm.
B tables ABAP two, three
Mm-hmm.
tables ABAP three.
Hmm.
So I want to return the values. Suppose A tables a field is like X, B table is a field is Y, C table field is Z. So how do we return these values with different fields of data in at a time? There is a
Yeah.
syntax.
Same thing. Here, assume that this field is part of different table. So you specify that schema. SAP
Okay,
ABAP 2, assume that the other schema is SAP ABAP 2 dot that particular table name, then you say dot. So even though it is part of multiple schemas, okay,
okay,
each column you have to prefix with the specific schema name.
okay. We can give here the same syntax.
Yes, 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 same, no change.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Anyhow, going forward, we'll see joins also. Just like we have inner join and a left outer join in our normal ABAP, here also we have different types of joins. We'll be discussing that going forward. Okay. So we understood the other syntax of this user-defined table function. So far what we have done is we have created the procedure or function directly in the SQL console, and we are consuming that procedure or function from the SQL console. But if you take the real project scenarios, the what are the stored procedure I created? I mean to say, what are the procedure I created in the HANA database level? I should able to consume it from the ABAP layer. Okay, so now we'll see how to create the procedure in a standard way such that it can be consumed from what ABAP layer also, not only from the HANA database level. I should able to consume it from what? ABAP layer also. What are the procedures or function I created so far? They cannot be consumed from the ABAP programs because I am not following any standard way. So let's see the standard way for consuming the HANA stored procedure from what? ABAP report. Okay. So the standards that we need to follow is, we what are the stored procedure we are going to create, we must create it as part of a package, and we need to store that particular stored procedure inside a schema called as, sys underscore big schema. There is a standard schema available as part of HANA database. What is that schema name? Underscore sys underscore big. So what is that first standard? The procedure has to be created as part of a package, and it has to be stored in the schema sys underscore big schema. Then the second step what you have to do is, for that particular stored procedure, we need to create something called as database procedure proxy. We need to create database procedure proxy. Okay. And then the next step is, we need to consume that particular database procedure proxy as part of what? ABAP report. So there are the three steps that we need to follow. What are the three steps? Create the stored procedure as part of a package and store it in what? Underscore sys underscore big schema. And the second step is, on top of that particular stored procedure, we need to create something called as database procedure proxy. Once a database procedure proxy is successfully created, the third step is, we need to consume that particular database procedure proxy from what? ABAP reports. So the understanding is, I cannot directly call the stored procedure from the ABAP program. On top of that particular stored procedure, we need to create DB proxy, database procedure proxy, and then consume that particular proxy from the ABAP report. So let's see that standard. So, and the logic inside the procedure can be anything. So here our agenda is what logic we'll write in the procedure. It can be any logic. Okay. So I'll take a very simple example to begin with. I need to return the data from a what? A database table. I need to return the data from a database table. So what I'll do first is, let me create one user defined table. I can take standard table also, but let me create a new table. Yeah, I'll create a new table which contains some columns. So I'll create the table using UI. So in our schema only, I'll right click on the table and I'll say what? New table. New table. I'll give the table name as something E underscore what? Department. E underscore department. By default it is column store. Fine. I'll give the column names here. I'll give it as something EMP ID. Let me give it as integer. Okay, EMP ID. I'll give it as integer. Then I'll create another column. Let me give it as ename. I will not create it as varchar. Okay, I'll wantedly create it as nvarchar. Do we have nvarchar here? Yeah, I'll create as nvarchar. Okay. So what you do is, as a practice, when you're practicing, you try to give it as varchar and let me know what happens. But here I am going for what? Nvarchar. Going forward, I'll create with varchar also. We'll understand the problem. But for today, when you are practicing, you provide the data type as what? Varchar, and check what happens. Let me know the answer tomorrow. So I'll give some value, something 20. Then I'll give another column name. Let me give it as EMP desic. This also I'll give it as nvarchar. I'll give it as something 20. Then I'll give another column. Let me give it as salary. Let me provide it as something decimal. salary decimal. So since it is decimal, yeah, I'll say something 15 comma 2, 15 comma 2. Then I'll give another column department number. Let me give it as something what? Integer. So these are the 5 columns which I created. That's all. N varchar of 20, N varchar of 20, decimal of 15 comma 2, done. Okay, let me try to execute this. Okay, after creating the table columns using UI, user interface, I'll click on execute. Yeah, the table got created. So in the tables section here, yeah, the table is available, E underscore department. Now let me quickly create some data in this. I'll create some data in this, insert some data in this particular table. So I'll say insert into, what is the table name? E underscore department values. I have to give the employee ID. I'll give it as 1. Employee name, I'll give it as something Rajkumar. I'll give the designation something manager. Then what else? Salary. Yeah. I'll give some salary. Then department number. Okay, so this is my data. No, we need to create it manually, Akshay. Right, so I'm inserting the data here. Right, the data got inserted. So if you see the table, we can create it. Okay, so here I can say generate what? Insert statement. It will provide the template. There I need to insert. So first let me say open data preview. How many records got inserted? 6 records. So here this is a table. Okay, I'll right click on this. Okay, and I'll say what? Generate what? Insert statement. Generate insert statement. Okay, it has provided the template. So again it has opened the SQL console. Again here also I need to provide the values. Is it clear, Akshay? Okay, so even if you use UI also, it generates the same template. Yeah. Okay, so done. So we created the table and we inserted the data. So what is the next requirement now? I need to create a stored procedure as part of a package, as part of a package. So we are in, so far we are doing the native HANA development. Which perspective we are using? Development perspective. Okay, development perspective. Okay, and what we have done so far, as part of this catalog folder, we have opened the SQL console. Initially we created a schema called as Gensoft HANA, and as part of that schema only we are creating all the database objects. Now the first thing you have to do is, I need to store the procedure inside a package. So what I have to do? I need to create a what? Package. How do you create the package? In the same development perspective, in the systems tab only, we have a subfolder called as what? Content. So if I expand this, it is showing me what? Some packages. It is showing me some packages. Okay, it is showing me some package. So what I'll do is I'll try to create one package first. How do you create the package? Right click on the content in the same development perspective in the systems tab. Right click on this content folder, say new. What is this? Package. New package. Okay, so let me choose this package. Done. It is asking the package name. It is asking the package name. I'll give the name of the package as something Z Zens. So I'm just following our normal ABAP standards. I'm trying to provide what? The package name. Okay. So Z Sensoft package. Done description. I'll give some description. I'll give it as something Gensoft package. There is something called as delivery unit, which is not relevant at this stage. Just ignore. Okay. So the name of the package is Gensoft package. I gave some description. That's all. Say what? Okay. Done. Package might be what created. So in the same content. So what is the package I created? Let me refresh. Somewhere at the last you can see we have a package called a Z Zensoft package. If I expand this, my package is empty. My package is empty. Okay, so this is another package, but we are concerned with our package Z Zensoft package, which is empty as of now. Now what you have to do, we need to create the procedure as part of that particular package. So how do you create? In the same development perspective, switch to repositories tab. There is a tab called as repositories tab. Okay, so in the repositories tab, if I switch to repositories tab, if I expand my instance, okay, so somewhere here, what is my package name? Under workspace 1, under workspace 1, what is our package name? Z Zensoft package na? Yeah, it is available as of now. Oh, it's already there, boss. It's already there. 1 second, please. This, I think it's already there. So I'll go for a new name. Okay, I don't want to use this. Let me go for a new name. Okay, right click on the content. I'll create a new package. New package. I'll give the package name as Z My Package. I'll give the description. Some description. Say OK. I clicked on OK button. Yeah. So package might be created. Now switch to repositories tab. Right. So in the repositories tab, under this workspace 1, yeah, you can see we have a package what Z My Package. If I expand, this is empty. Okay, so in the repositories tab, we have the package Z My Package. I need to create what procedure now. How do you create now? Right click on the package, right click on our package, say new, and I'll go to what? Other. Right click on the package, new, other. Okay, if I click on this new other, I'll get some wizard here. Before that, let me cancel. I'll go back to my systems tab. What is a package I created? Z My Package na? So let me cross check. Yeah, this is my package, Z My Package. I'm in the systems tab now. Okay, if I right click on this, I'll say new new. Here we have package. Observe here, I'm in the systems tab. Right click on the package, new package. We have attribute view, analytical view, calculation view, analytic privilege, it seems procedure, it seems decision table. If I click on this procedure, okay, I'm in the systems tab. Remember, if I click on this procedure, I'm getting an error. What is the error I got? creating a new procedure is deprecated in the modular perspective. Okay, use the repositories or project explorer view in the development perspective to create the stored procedure. Am I clear to everyone why I'm switching to repositories tab? In the systems tab, it will not allow me to create the procedure. It is saying that use the repositories or project explorer view in the development perspective to create the stored procedure .hdb procedure HANA database procedure. So I'll say okay. That is the reason I'm switching to what? Repositories tab. Then right click on this, say new. I click on the package new, and here I don't have any procedure here now. I don't have any procedure here. So go to what? Other, new other. Okay, so when I click on new other, yeah, you can see under where, under database development, under database development, one second, yeah, under what, SAP HANA. Am I clear? We have many options here. Under SAP HANA, under database development, we have an object called as what, stored procedure. So choose what, stored procedure, say next, say next. Right. So it is asking the name of the file. Name of the file is nothing but name of the procedure here. Name of the procedure. I'll give the procedure name as something read underscore what? Employee underscore data. What is the name of the procedure? Read underscore employee underscore data. Then it is asking the file format. We have .hdb procedure and we have what, dot procedure. So for the time being, don't choose dot htb procedure. Choose what, dot procedure. Okay, xml in the parentheses dot procedure. Right, so for the time being, choose what, dot procedure. Then it is asking what, target schema. Target schema, what is the standard? I said what is the procedure you want to consume from the ABAP layer. That procedure must be stored in which schema? Sys underscore big schema. Then only it is then only we can create the proxy for that. So choose the target schema as compulsory. You have to choose the target schema as what, sys underscore what, big schema. Say what, okay. Say okay. Right, so what I did here, I repeat this once again. First, in the Systems tab, I created a package. I right clicked on the content. I created one package with the name ZMy package. Then, as part of Repositories tab, right click on your package and try to create the stored procedure. Provide the name of the procedure. What is the procedure name I give? Read underscore employee underscore data. Choose a format as what, dot procedure, so that your procedure will be suffixed with the extension what, dot procedure. Then choose the target schema as what, sys underscore what, big. They gave it as deprecated. Deprecated means it is supported in the current version. In future, SAP might provide an alternative for this. So don't worry about this deprecated. So just choose what, dot procedure, but choose the target schema as sys underscore big. Say what, finish. Say finish. See what happens here. What is the syntax we know for the procedure so far? Create procedure. In the parentheses, we'll give the input parameter, output parameter, and then we'll say what, as begin the procedure logic, and we'll use what, end statement. Now when I say finish here, yeah, you can see it has generated one template for the procedure. What is the template? Create procedure. The schema name dot procedure name. Language is what, SQL script. Language is SQL script. And then we have something called a SQL security invoker. And then default schema reads SQL data begin end. Okay. So just observe this. In the parentheses here, what you have to do, we have to give the list of input parameters and list of output parameters that anyhow we know. Okay, and language, what is showing by default here, SQL script. SQL script. Okay, whatever the logic we are writing inside the procedure, that logic is in which language? SQL script. There is another language supported, it seems, called as R language. So if you know R language, I can write the procedure logic using what? R language also. At that time, you have to say what language as what? R. So just leave it. We don't know that R language. As an ABAP consultant, we always use what? SQL script only. Done. And then here we are using an option called a SQL security invoker. And the another value for this SQL security is a definer. Okay. So what is the default language here? Default language is what? SQL script. Means so far when you are creating the procedure, we are not using this addition. Even if you don't use that addition, by default it will take it as what? By default take it as what? uh, Language is what? SQL script. If you want to use it, you can use it explicitly. Even if you don't use also, by default take it as what? SQL script only. And then we have something called as SQL security mode. SQL security mode. Okay, there are two SQL security modes. One is invoker, another is what? Another is what? Definer. So even if you don't use this, the default SQL security mode is what? Invoker. Okay, if you specify also no problem. What is the other possible value here? Definer, it seems. Definer. So what is the difference between invoker and definer is, yeah, if I use invoker, by default also it is invoker, it uses the permissions, it uses the permissions of the user who is calling the procedure while executing the procedure. Whenever we are executing the procedure, whenever you're trying to create the procedure, it will make use of the authorizations, it will make use of the permissions of the user who is calling the procedure, who is calling the procedure. And what is the other SQL security mode? Definer. In this, what happens? It uses the permissions of the user who has created the procedure while you are executing the procedure. You'll understand that going forward, but understanding for the time being is there are two types of SQL security modes. One is definer, another is what? Invoker. Definer and what? Invoker. By default, it is what? Invoker, which indicates what? It uses the permissions of the user whoever has created the procedure. Sorry, whoever is calling the procedure. Invoker means the caller. Whoever is going to call that procedure, it will make use of the permissions of that particular caller. If I use definer, what happens? It will make use of the permission of the user whoever has created the procedure. So by default, it is what? Invoker. And then there is another addition called as default schema. Default schema. So here, suppose I'll say default schema. Try to understand. I'll provide the default schema as something SAP ABAP 1, for example. If I use the default schema as SAP ABAP 1, now inside my procedure logic, I will use some select statement or I'll use some statements. I will say select star from VBAK. So what happens now? It will check for this database object. It will check for this particular table inside which schema? Inside the default schema specified. So what is the advantage of specifying this default schema? If you don't specify this, if I don't specify this, wherever I refer to that VBAK in my procedure logic, every time I need to prefix with what? The schema name. I need to prefix with what? Schema name. To avoid that headache, I can use the addition what? Default schema. Okay, default schema. Suppose there is another thing. I am specifying the default schema name is SAP above 1. Suppose I want to refer to a table which is available inside Gensoft HANA. So doesn't mean that I should use the objects of only this schema. I can use the objects of other schema also, but if you're using the objects of other schema, again, I need to prefix with that particular schema name. Am I clear to everyone? Okay, so that is the concept of what? So this is anyhow it's optional. I may or may not use that particular default schema. So what does it indicate? Indicates that all the database objects used inside the procedure body, will be picked from where? Specified default schema. If the objects of other schema has to be used, then we need to prefix that object with the schema name. Hope it's clear to everyone. So even if you don't use this, not an issue. Okay. Then what is the other option? Reads SQL data as. So what is the meaning here? The meaning is what here? We are telling SAP that we are going to create, we are going to use only select statement inside our procedure. So explicitly we are specifying this means I should use only what? Select statement. I cannot use other DML statements like what? Insert, update, delete, all those things. So what is the advantage specifying this? Indicates that we are not going to perform any data manipulation, so that the processor will skip some privilege checks on the procedure. Even if I don't do also, it works fine. It works fine. But what happens is it will perform some checks whenever you are trying to execute the procedure. In order to avoid that check, if you are sure that we are going to use only select statement, then indicate that by using the addition what? Read SQL data as so and so. Okay. So this is the whole syntax for your procedure. Any questions? Any questions in this template? Okay, so as you can see here, I got some warning here. When I put the cursor on that, I got a tooltip here. What is that? No default schema specified. During activation, the default schema is set to your user schema. Is set to your user schema in the sense I logged into which user, ANA user na. So already we have seen in the initial classes, on behalf of every logged in user, a default schema will be available with the name of that user na. So what is the schema name in this case? ANA, because my database username is also what? ANA. So based on that username, you will have one default schema. So it is saying that if you don't specify any default schema, it will set the default schema as what? User schema. So no issue, not an issue. Okay, done. Okay, so let us write the logic inside our procedure. What is the logic here? In the table data na, so simply I'll say, observe this carefully. Which table? E underscore department na. E underscore department is available in which schema? In our own schema na, gensoft ana. So I'll say out, try to understand, I tab, out I tab. What is the table name? E underscore department. So if I leave it like this, for example, if I leave it like this, what happens? It will check for this particular table in the schema which is set for this. What is the schema for the logged in user? Anana. So in the ANA schema, in the systems tab, in the systems tab, do we have any ANA schema here? Yeah, we have a schema what? ANA. Understood? On behalf of every logged in user, a default schema will have this ANA schema. So in this ANA schema, do we have any table with E underscore department? If I expand this, E underscore department. No, I don't have any table with the name what? E underscore department. E underscore department. So it would give an error. So what I have to do? Either I need to prefix this with the schema name, or what I have to do as part of this procedure definition, I can simply say what? What is the default schema? What is the schema name? Gensoft Anana. That's all. So what happens? It will check for this particular table inside which schema? The default schema. That's all. So write the required logic here. What is the output parameter? I tab na. So I tab is equal to what? Select star from, what is the table name? E underscore department. So here also I need not prefix with the schema name. Anyhow we have specified the schema name na. If this table is part of a different schema, then you have to specify. Otherwise, this is sufficient if I refer to the object. That's all. Right? So I'm done with the procedure logic. I can write any logic inside this procedure. So we are not focusing on the logic of the procedure. We are trying to understand the standard way of creating the procedure. That's all. Let me save it. Control S. I'm saving it. Then let me check for the syntax errors. Control F2. Control F2. right? No syntax error. I'll try to activate. Yeah, it is asking what assign objects to a change request. Why it is asking for the change request? Because I have stored this procedure inside a package now, so I can choose the existing things or I'll go for new. Some description I'll give. I'll say okay. Where is it? I guess 6th March, no? Yeah, at the last it is there. I'll choose this. I'll say what? Finish. Ah, okay. I got an activation error. When I'm trying to activate, I got an error. A number of objects were not activated because they contain errors or their activation would cause errors in affected objects. Could not create the procedure. SQL error in the procedure. Creation statement header. Insufficient privilege not authorized. Insufficient privilege not authorized. Okay, I don't have the permission. I don't have the permission to create the procedure, to store the procedure. Okay, inside that particular schema sys underscore what big. Am I clear? So this is the admin issue. I don't have the privilege to create that. So sometimes when you are practicing also, you may get this issue. Okay, so in the real time, if you get this issue, just take the screenshot of this and send a mail to your basis consultant. He will provide the required the ANA basis consultant. He will set the required permissions. Okay, so here in our case, in order to avoid this activation error, what I'll do is I'll go back to my SQL console. Okay, this is my SQL console. One second. So in my SQL console, what you have to do is I need to set the permissions. So again, this is related to admin. As a ANA what ANA ABAP developer, we need not worry about this statement. This is basically an admin permission. Okay. So to set the permissions in any database, we have a statement called as grant. Okay, grant select on schema. Grant select on schema. What is our schema? Gensoft ANA. Grant select on schema. Gensoft ANA. Two. There is one predefined schema. Sys underscore repo. Sys underscore repo. Na? Sys underscore repo. With what? Grant option. So this is admin statement. We need not worry about that. In the real time, if you get any problem in activating your procedure, that is activation failed because of insufficient privilege, just send the screenshot to the ANA administrator. Okay, he is going to set the permission. So for that, I need to use this statement: grant select on schema Gensoft ANA to sys underscore repo with grant option. Let me execute this. Yeah, it is this statement is successfully executed. Now let me come back to my procedure, save it, check for the syntax error, activate this. Good. So you can see here below I got the job log. What is that? Activation completed successfully. So when you are practicing in your machines or in your somewhere in your workplace, okay, you may not get the activation. In case if you get, just go back to your SQL console and try to execute this statement. So when I send the material, I'll send this also. So just provide this particular authorization permission so that I should be able to create the procedure successfully. Done. So the procedure is successfully activated. So if the procedure is successfully activated, SAP will create runtime object. Okay, whatever we have created is a design time object. Okay, SAP will create the runtime object in the catalog folder under what? Sys underscore big schema. Understood? So whatever I created in our package, this is called as a design time object. This is a design time object. But if you want to consume that procedure, I need to refer to what? Runtime object. Where that runtime object will be available in the systems tab, in the systems tab, in the systems tab. In which schema we have stored? In the systems tab, where I can see all the schemas in the catalog only na, in the catalog folder under sysbig schema. Where is that sysbig? Yeah, under sysbig schema. If I expand, yeah, under what? Procedures, under procedures, somewhere it will be there. Somewhere it will be there. I need to check it. What is the procedure name? Read underscore employee underscore data na. So somewhere it would be there. There are many things here. What is my package? This one, yeah, good. You can see here, z my package slash read underscore employee data. So if I double click on this, good. So this is your runtime object. What is the runtime objects here? In what format it is stored? Actually, if you observe here, this is a design time object. Where we are? 1 second, please. Yeah, this is your design time object. What are we created? This is a design time object. So when you want to consume that procedure, when you want to call that procedure, always you have to refer to what? Runtime object. Where this runtime object is available? In the systems tab under catalog in the target schema. What is the target schema? Sys underscore big. So if I double click on this, this is my runtime object. I need to refer to this particular naming convention. Okay, so we should not refer to design time object. I must refer to runtime object wherever you are consuming. Okay, now let us try to call the procedure. Okay, already we know how to call the procedure now. So let me go back to what? Systems tab in my SQL console. Already we know how to call it from a what? SQL console. So I'll say call. How do you call a procedure? Call. I'll do one thing. I'll do one thing. Let me try to refer to what? Design time object. I'll try to refer to design time object. Done. What is the signature of my procedure? It is having one output parameter now. So obviously I need to bound with what? I need to bind with what? A placeholder, right? So done. Let me check whether this works or not. F8. Good. I got an error. What is the error I got? Call so and so invalid name of function or procedure. So it is not recognizing any procedure with this name. Now I'll say call. I'll try to refer to the runtime object. This is my runtime object now. Let me try to refer to that. Right. So I'll say F8. Good. I got the data. So wherever you are calling the procedure, you should always refer to the runtime object. When that runtime object gets created on successful activation of your procedure, okay, in the target schema it gets created, where we can see that in the catalog, in the systems tab, in the catalog folder, under sysbig schema, you can observe that particular runtime object. So now I got the result of my procedure. Any questions? So I'll quickly summarize what I have explained today. So whenever, remember one thing, as an HANA native HANA developer, okay, as a native HANA developer, whenever we are creating the stored procedure at the database level, why we are going for creating the procedure? First of all, The advantage of creating the procedure is the procedure gets executed directly at the HANA database level. When it is getting executed at the HANA database level, it will leverage the features. It will make use of the features of what? HANA database, which will increase the performance. Okay, that's the reason we'll create what? Procedures. Okay, so when you're creating the procedures, what is the standard you have to follow? We should never create the procedure in the SQL console. We can create, but if you created the SQL console, I can call that procedure only from the HANA database level. I cannot consume it outside the HANA database level. In order to consume it outside the HANA database level, I mean to say at the ABAP layer, I need to follow some standards. What is that standards? You must create the procedure inside a package. So make sure that you have to create the package. Okay, under systems tab, you have to right click on the content folder and you have to create the package. Once a package is created, then what you have to do in the same development perspective, under repositories, right click on your package and try to create the procedure. Right click on the package and try to create the procedure. While creating the procedure, you must specify the target schema as what? Sys underscore big schema. So what happened? The procedure template will be generated. What is the template? What is the language we are using? Whose permissions we are using? It is SQL security mode. What are the available language? SQL script and what? R language. By default, the language is what? SQL script. What are the default? What are the SQL security modes? Invoker and what? Definer. Okay. Invoke by default is what? Invoker. Invoker means it will make use of the permissions of the caller when you're executing the procedure. If you're using definer, it will make use of the permissions of the user, whoever has created the procedure, Okay. Then default schema means the advantage of specifying the default schema is inside my procedure body, I need not prefix my object name with the schema name. If you don't prefix the object name with the schema name, it will refer to what? The default schema. In case if you are not specified the default schema, it will refer to that object. It will check for that object in the logged in user schema. Logged in user schema. On behalf of every logged in user, you will have one default schema. It will refer to that. Okay. And on when you are activating the procedure, sometimes you may not have the permissions to create the procedure. So at that time, you have to use some grant option to set the permissions. So this is the statement which is executed by what? The administrator in order to set the permission. Grant option. Okay, done. Once a process is successfully what activated, what happens? A runtime object gets created in the target schema. What is the target schema? Sys underscore big schema, where we can see that in the catalog folder. In the catalog under sys big schema, I can refer to that particular runtime object. Now once a runtime object is available, I can consume that particular stored procedure from the SQL console by referring to the runtime object, not to the design time object. So till this stage, we can consume only from the HANA database level. Now, if you want to expose it outside the HANA database, what you have to do? There are two ways basically. One is creating the database procedure proxy and consuming that proxy from the ABAP layer. Otherwise, going forward, we'll see one framework called as ADBC framework. ADBC framework, ABAP database connectivity. Just like if you know Java, we have JDBC framework, Java database connectivity. Related to HANA database also, we have ADBC framework, ABAP database connectivity. Using that framework also, I can consume the procedures from the ABAP layer. So that part I'll discuss in the next session, that is tomorrow. Any questions for today, please ask me. No, I'll share that PDF, Sri Lakshmi. Today I'll share it with everyone for referring to that syntax, everything. I'm having one standard PDF. You refer to that. Okay, I'll share it with everyone today. Okay, done. So tomorrow what we'll do is we'll try to create the proxy and we'll try to consume, and we'll also see how to debug the procedure. Tomorrow we'll discuss that. Any questions for today? Please ask me. I have not shared the material for the last two sessions. Okay, today I'll share it. I have not prepared, I was busy, but I've shared the recordings with everyone. Okay, material I'll prepare it today and I'll share it with everyone. Done? Any questions?
No questions.
Yes, Srinivas, even for you also, I'll share the earlier recordings. Probably by today afternoon Indian time, I'll share it. Okay, I
Yeah,
was
yeah,
busy in
sure.
study. Okay, yeah.
Thank you.
Right then, so I'll wind off. We'll continue tomorrow and we'll see how to create the proxy and how to debug the process. Tomorrow we'll discuss that. Sure then. So I'm disconnecting. We'll continue tomorrow.